All right. Welcome. Good to see the folks here that are here. And welcome to our first budget, our final budget hearing. If we can please call the roll.
Mayor Bright Cruz,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hartman,
Here.
Councilmember Albritton,
Present.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Here.
Councilmember Kaczynski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this actually is the first budget hearing. I was right till I was wrong. All right. Administrator comments.
Mayor, I'll make this very brief. I know that the star of the show tonight is going to be Emil Lopez and Richard Strum, so I'll make it very brief. Just this is a culmination of several months of hard work of putting this budget together. We present to you a balanced budget that, as it was last year, augments the services that we provided to the residents in fiscal year 25. We propose to do the same thing in fiscal year 26 while keeping the millage rate the same. And with your leadership, also minimizing the increases on the solid waste and the fire services assessment. So with that, I'll turn it over to Emil, who has a detailed presentation. If you have any questions, be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, and the public. As the Mayor indicated, this is going to be the first public hearing for the budget adoption. With that in mind, it's going to be the final for the fire assessment and the solid waste assessment. So with that, we need to go to the first slide. Thank you. As I indicated on item 1, that's the adoption of the final fire protection assessment rate and solid waste assessment, and the first public hearing for the tentative millage and the budget adoption. The next slide Thank you, sorry for that. This is where we are right now, Monday, September 15. This is, and there's two steps that are required in completing of the budget. One is the advertisement of the second public hearing, and then the second public hearing, Excel, on September 25th. This here shows where we are now. What transpired from the July 24 preliminary budget adoption, the budget workshop, and the first public hearing. These are the changes that were provided, council directed during the budget workshop. At the same time, the first item is essentially, now we know that the project for the Southwest Meadows Park restroom facility needs to be rolled into 2026, which is why now we are including that item in the first budget hearing. This is going to be amended in the summary sheet that is included in the advertisement for the September 25th meeting. The next two items are essentially the two items that we brought forward during the budget workshop to council. Is the grant for $900,000 that the town received to be utilized for the construction of the Emergency Operating Center, EOC. And also the grant for the Dykes Road turn lanes, of which the town will be impacted or utilizing $135,000 for town's match. It's important to mention that there was a great news that was communicated by the town administrator today with the assistance and the contributions with Emily. The town was able to be granted an additional amount which is going to bring the project to over 1.1, of which the town would only be contributing, not exceeding 200,000. Once we get a firm amount as to what the town's match is going to be, we're going to distribute that accordingly. And the last one is, again, directive by council during the budget workshop of the utilization of 500,000 to subsidize $250,000 each for the fire and the solid waste assessments. Now we're going to jump into the four pieces that are included in the presentation. The first one is the fire assessment. This slide includes the 4-year history of the three categories that are included in the fire assessment. The one in blue is for residential. In green is for the ag classification rate per acre, and the last one in purple is the combined non-residential. There's also a bit of a good news here too, is that during the budget workshop, we presented to the public a residential rate that was representing an increase from 758.63 and to 775.46. And the same thing happened with the agricultural classification, in which we presented an increase of a decrease of $80.54. The consultant was able to find a small variance in the calculation within the methodology that resulted in an additional decrease in the ag classification rate and a smaller increase in the residential rate, which is what's indicated in the new rates. It went from 758.63 now to 767.76. If you use in reference the last number presented, it was from 758.63 to 775.46. So this is an increase year over year of only $9.13, and a decrease from the ag classification of $6.59. No changes are reflected from the budget workshop in where the town ranks among the municipalities that actually assess fire assessment. But again, as highlighted on every occasion when we bring this to council on the public, is that the fire assessment is a full cost recovery item. So although all the municipalities do contribute to it, the town is opting to pass this true cost within the fire assessment rate. Now we go into the solid waste rate. This one also, there's no changes to what was presented to council during the budget workshop. The residential is going from 560 from 560.67 versus last year of 554.57, which is a small increase of $6.10 on the residential. Here is just pretty much highlighting how we were able to attain this rate is due to guidance from council in utilizing that subsidy in the amount of $250,000. Now we're going to the millage rate. Again, no changes. No changes year over year, and we're still at the same place as we were during the budget workshop, as well as during the preliminary budget adopted in July 24. Those are the remaining municipalities within Broward County. This is the historical data of the millage rate. If you look at the last 4 years, that's the last 3, then inclusive of the proposed, no millage change is included in this proposed 25-26 budget. And now we jump into the last portion of the budget adopted. This is inclusive of the changes that were presented to council during the budget, preliminary budget adoption July 24, as well as the budget workshop on August 12. So now, this is where the funds are coming from. And it's important to mention that the biggest driver of the funding sources is as every or most municipalities are in Broward County, ad valorem taxes. Intergovernmental went higher, and that is attributable to the different funding changes that we made from the preliminary to the adopted, to the first hearing, which is also included in the special assessment, because now this one has a reduction of the 250,000 from the preliminary one in July 24, and then it goes in descending order. And how do the town expend these funds? It's broken down in this slide. Operating expenses is the biggest portion of it. It's also good to relate to the public and council that public safety is the biggest driver of the operating expenses, of which it comprehends about over 60%, and about 34 to 35% of the total budget. And we are including one item in here just to highlight the fact that the 250,000 council is requiring us to fund to subsidize the solid waste is inclusive, so the public actually could see it individually. With this in mind, the town, just for transparency purposes and clarity, is that the town is in the process of acquiring land for the EOC Center. This budget does not include funding for that transaction, and this is normal. It is because unless you have an actual transaction identified, a commitment or verbal agreement, that the commitment is fall into the town's responsibility, then we go in accordance to that plans. In this case, it's not in existence now, although we are aware that the town is in pursuit of that. That said, the town has sufficient funds within the unassigned fund balance and the reserve to cover this transaction in the event that were to happen. We are aware that some of the specific instructions was to utilize the transaction expected from the CCA cell, PBX CCA. So once that item is brought forward to council, is per council directive how the funds will be utilized. If those funds were not available at the time of the transaction, is per council directive, we can actually utilize those funds and replenish the previously used funds for that transaction in the event that's what the council wants us to do.
Emil, I got a question about that slide, if you wouldn't mind going back. I see you've got personnel broken out. Is that included in the operating, or is that independent of operating?
It's not included.
Okay.
And again, to your point, what it is included, it's a solid waste transfer, but for transparency, we deducted that off of that, so it could be actually shown to the public.
Stand out. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other comments, questions from council? Emil, great job. You, Richard, full staff, everybody, and I know it goes down to department heads all the way across the board,
Yeah.
contributing to this. another great budget where it all makes sense, and it's following the directives of the council, which is doing our best to follow the directives of our residents. So it's great to see it all work and appreciate all the hard work that went into it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Mayor, with that, I just want to then, once it gets to the point of a voting into these items, that it is voted as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think let's read item number 5 into the record.
Item number 5 is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, providing findings, providing purpose and definitions, amending in part Section 3 of Resolution 2025-070 by providing a new definition, incorporating the 2025 Fire Assessment Report Addendum, providing for provision and funding of fire protection services, providing for imposition and computation of fire protection assessments, providing legislative determinations of special benefit and fair apportionment, approving the final fire services assessment rates and final role relating to the provision of fire protection services, facilities, and programs in the town for fiscal year 2025-26, confirming an exemption for veterans with service-connected total and permanent disability, providing for effective adoption of resolution, providing for application of assessment proceeds, providing for conflicts, severability, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? Is there any public discussion on this item? Seeing none, public session closed. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Albritton?
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaczynski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hartman?
Proudly, yes.
Mayor Bright Cruz?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Excellent. Item number 6, please.
Item number 6 is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, relating to the provision of solid waste services, facilities, and programs to residential properties in the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida for fiscal year 2025-26, commencing October 1st, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, providing authority for solid waste service assessments, providing purpose and definitions, providing findings, incorporating the solid waste special assessment methodology report, providing for an exemption for veteran service-connected total and permanent disability, approving the assessment role, and providing for an effective date.
Motion approved.
Second.
A motion and a second on the item. Is there any further discussion from the council?
Real quick, Mayor, thank you again this year for including the vets. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Is there any public discussion on this item? Seeing none, public session closed. Queen, please call the roll. Was there? Oh, sorry. Okay, public session back open.
I was asking Noel if it was the right.
Okay,
I still don't know for sure if this is the right time,
that's okay.
but over the past couple of years, so.
Get a little bit closer to the mic, please.
The prior year's budget.
Who
And
are
could
you?
you, who? Can
Oh,
just your-
Debbie Green, 5201 Southwest 199.
Thank you.
There's been discussion and direction to include the zero waste consultant and zero waste programs into the budget. It was said the time ago, and then at the start of this budget cycle, the discussion was had again. It was, yes, it's in the budget. I don't know if because nothing happened with it the prior year, did it not end up in this budget? I don't know if it's in solid waste or that's somewhere else in the budget or public works where it is.
Great.
But but then all of a sudden now there's a zero waste consultant RFP out there and negotiations going on, and now all of a sudden it's not in the budget. So just for transparency and for the residents, for town council, for staff, for everybody, is it in the budget? Where would we find it in the budget? Because I'm not finding it where I intuitively would think it would be.
Okay.
And again, I'm not sure if this was the time or later, but thank you.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. Any other public comment? Seeing no other public comment closed. You want to address where it is in the budget?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item was not included in the 2026 budget per se, because it's not impacting millage rate. However, with that in mind, the amount that we had in the 2025 budget was appropriated to be rolled into 2026.
Gotcha.
So those funds will be included in the appropriated fund balance amount that is reflected in the account.
Okay. But, I mean, I know we're out there, looking to fill this position here. So, wouldn't that require a budget adjustment during the year if we were to fill this position?
Okay, so let me just elaborate on the process, how it works. The 2025 budget,
Uh-huh.
during its adoption, it was not included in the 2025 budget. So you're not going to be able to find it if you go online and pull up that 2025 budget.
The
That
year
would-
that's coming to a close.
Correct. And that was intentional at the time. It was
Okay.
because the price of the consultant, zero waste consultant, was unknown. So council provided directive to that, once that is known, then bring it to council. And council provided directive during the presentation, the discussion item that the town administrator brought forward, in which the amount was determined not to exceed. That amount is the amount that is going to be included pending the negotiations, because we were not going to be able to complete that in the fiscal year 2025.
Right.
My assumption is that then that amount would be rolled into 2026.
That's not making sense to me. What you're saying, I'm going to repeat it back, and you correct me where I went astray,
ahead.
is that we did not include it in the 2025 budget because we didn't know what the amount was. We then knew what the amount was, and yet we did not include it in the 2026 budget.
It's just that that's not how it works. We didn't have it in 2025. When council provided
I
directive,
gotcha.
that's the budget adjustment, that's the budget amendment that you indicate
For the
occurred.
2025 budget.
2025, yes. So the way it happens is that once those transactions do not happen during the fiscal year, it is the discretion of the town administrator and council to roll those funds into the 2026 budget.
I understand that that can be done. To me, it lacks transparency to do it that way. To me, that should be a situation where that funding should be recognized that it wasn't spent in 2025 and that it's rebudgeted again for 2026. I say again, it's actually budgeted. Plans change. I could see, Emil, I could see if it was a restricted fund. Like these dollars cannot go anywhere else. They're restricted. Then I got you. Then I'm okay with exactly what you're saying, because those dollars are going to be set aside. Could be 10 years from now, but they're not going anywhere until they're spent on this particular item. I'm okay there. But these are unrestricted funds. They could go anywhere, and there's nothing in the budget that says they should go to this project.
That's perfectly fine. And if a line item, having it, the reason why this is done is because if you do it, if you take the approach that you're mentioning, then it will be impacting the millage of 2026. Why is that? Because then now the 70,000, I'm using an amount, if I remember correctly, it was close to that amount.
Not to exceed.
So let's say not to exceed, if we have that 70,000, that 70,000 will roll automatically. If we don't do anything, that amount will roll automatically into unassigned fund balance.
Right.
And then we will go in and include it in the millage as part of the millage transaction for 2026. This way, the funds that has already been previously allocated to it are non-impacting the 2026 millage rate. Even though it's included in the budget, but it's not impacting to it. That's the reason how
I
it
get
happened.
what you're saying. I get what you're saying. However, I get what you're saying. However, the monies are going to be in reserve, so we would pull it from reserve. We're not going to increase the millage.
Right.
Okay, that's the reality of the situation. My concern is this, and I still haven't heard anything that makes me comfortable with it. How do we, what in the budget says that we're going to spend the money in this way?
There is.
Do we
a-
have to go back to 2025's budget and do the research to know this?
No, there is a line item in the budget. It's called appropriated fund balance, which is what we use when we do the budget adjustment every year and we bring to council. That amount that we have sometimes do not happen. It rolls back into unassigned fund balance. So if anyone in the public goes into that line item in the budget, it's going to see it as appropriated fund balance. And that, if I'm not mistaken,
It'll be appropriated fund balance. Will it have the tag to say this is going towards zero waste consultant?
no, it's all
That's the problem.
Yes, it's all the amounts.
That's, please, quiet in the.
It includes all the amounts that have been from the appropriated from the previous year as a line item, but we do
Yeah,
have
I'm
the
not
detail
comfortable
of
with
it.
that. I think that lacks transparency, I'll be honest with you.
Is
Mayor,
there a
can I
way to
just add
call it
some-
out? As you
can-
roll it over as an appropriated fund balance? Is there a way to call it out in the ledger? So it's obvious?
No, because it's like when we have software expenses, there's multiple contracts within that line item. For you to be able to do that, you will have to break that line item with all the costs associated to it. We do have the tracking mechanism for it,
Okay.
in which we roll the purchase order. If it was an existing purchase order, we roll that purchase order into the next year without impacting that year.
Russell, I see your,
Yeah, I just wanted to give some perspective on this. I think this was exacerbated by the timing of how all this went down. Obviously, we're trying to bring you forward a budget that has a lot of components to it. And obviously, we're trying to present things to you at a budget workshop and then a budget hearing, and the timing of that is essential. Had this been a $700,000 project that we're talking about, and we handled it in the same way, it would have major implications on the millage.
Right.
So what Emil is saying is the direction that council gave us not to spend more than $70,000 on this, it would have been very difficult to hold up the budget process to factor the $70,000 in, make sure that it doesn't affect the millage, which 70,000 is not going to. However, if it would have been a much more significant project, it may have. So what we did is we do what we normally do. If you guys give us basically authority to spend not to exceed a certain amount, as he mentioned, he put it into an appropriated fund balance, which then we would have to come back to council anyway when it's time to spend that money and say, as you guys gave us direction previously, we're now asking for that money to go ahead and spend that for this particular consultant. So there would be, I understand the concerns about transparency, but we would never spend that kind of money, especially anything more than my purchasing authority, without coming back to council and asking for your authority to do so.
so given that logic,
Mhm.
are you comfortable that, let's say that wasn't $70,000? Let's say that was 2.5 million, that we would still have it there with no tag, no indicator? We would just roll over with no one in the public
Well-
to be able to see that?
Well, we do all of that at a public setting.
No,
with
I'm
pub-
asking,
Yeah.
don't deflect. I mean, this is a budget. It's
Mm-hmm.
not in the budget. Would you be comfortable? I certainly would not be comfortable with that. I would think that's way out of line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should use, that's the logic we should use regardless of the amount. I don't think it's asking too much, not to change the budget. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is there needs to be a tag there for those specific items that have been previously allocated by the council to have a list of them there. I don't think that's a big ask.
Yeah, I'm not saying it is, but don't mistake me, please. What I'm saying is our typical process to do that is a program modification, which typically would be some documentation that would indicate that amount, and it would be easier to find, granted. In this case, we probably would have done that had this been done in May. The timing of this exacerbated the situation, and basically I'll be honest, for expediency purposes, we didn't do that. And so,
And I get that.
Right.
What I'm saying is, what does it take to put a footnote in there? What does it take?
We
I'm
can-
getting
yeah.
pretty frustrated
No,
because
no.
to me, this is very simple and straightforward. Financial statements, that's why you have footnotes. That's what they're designed for. That is specifically why you have them and why we don't just put a financial footnote in there with that indicator on it. It's frustrating to me.
yeah,
We can certainly highlight the breakdown of the appropriated fund amount. And as you indicate, if as a footnote, that's perfectly fine. During the presentation, there is that line item reflected there, just like there is, I'm not saying that we're not going to, I'm just going to break down how we presented it to the public and council. One of the slide, I believe, 15 indicates the breakdown of all the expenditures and all the revenue. And then those only present the total. Per council directive, if that's what council wants us to do, on any one of those specific items, we know what makes up those items. If that's the directive from council, to make sure that going forward, all the appropriated amount that is listed in that summary to be broken down, we can certainly do it. But be mindful that there could be 1 year that there's only a few purchase orders that are included there. In others, there's gonna be multiple. No issues whatsoever for us to do it.
So I get what you're saying, but I don't want you to misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm talking about a very unique situation. If a normal appropriation, we've gone through the whole budget cycle. We've seen the program mods, we've seen the whole thing, it's there. We've got documentation of that. I'm talking about this very small situation of ones that were appropriated in the prior year. We didn't spend the money, and now that's sliding into the next budget year. I think those should be a footnote.
And we would do that. But to your point, this specific year, it's $2.1 million. So we would do it, and that's perfectly possible. There's no question about it because we have the breakdown, so we can certainly do it, and we would do it.
Great, thank you, thank you. And thanks for bringing that up. I think that was an important
Yeah,
point.
Thank you. I gotta ask the question.
Sure, go.
Is this the only thing that was treated that way?
Well, that's,
That's my next.
well, I know, and in defense of our finance team, it sounds like that's been our policy. And so they're following policy. And so as the policy group, I think we're asking for a different policy. And so I think the answer is other things have been handled that way, but they're hearing that we want a policy change.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Doesn't take anything away from a job very well done.
No, thank you.
Okay.
No, none taken.
Good catch, Debbie.
Yeah, great catch. All right. All right. Any other council comment on this item? Seeing nothing, please call the roll.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Councilmember Kaczynski.
Yes.
Councilmember Albritton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hartman.
Yes.
Mayor Bright Cruz.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. Item number 7, please.
Item 7 is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving and adopting the tentative millage rate for taxation of real property lying within the boundaries of the Town of Southwest Ranches for the fiscal year 2025-2026, commencing October 1st, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item?
Yeah, just a quick
Yeah.
question. Why, silly question, why isn't the millage rate in the resolution?
Well, this is just the title of the resolution. It's in the resolution. I would assume it's in the resolution.
I'm looking at the short, I'm looking at the
actually
short
one.
version.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the short version you should just read.
Yeah, that's just a title, though. I mean, if you dig into the actual resolution that's behind it,
Yeah.
the millage is in there.
I just want to make note that this may be the last year we're doing this. If the governor and the legislature get their way, we may not have millage rates anymore. So it's going to be interesting how long this discussion goes next year
Yeah.
to discuss our alternatives.
We'll see where the world goes. I don't see that as a possibility, but it's something we have to, it's
They
a
keep
great point.
talking about it.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, any public discussion, any public comment on this item? All right, thank you. Public comment closed. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Kaczynski.
Yes.
Councilmember Albritton.
yes.
Councilmember Jablonski.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hartman.
Yes.
Mayor Bright Cruz.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. Item number 8, please.
Item number 8 is an ordinance of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the budget of the Town of Southwest Ranches for fiscal year 2025-2026, commencing October 1st, 2025, and ending September 30th, 2026, providing for a budget basis, providing for expenditure of funds, providing for carryover of funds, providing for notice, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Motion approved.
Second.
Third.
We have a motion and a second, and even one more, a third. Great. Is there any council comment on this item? Seeing none, any public comment on the item? Oh, go ahead.
I just did want to make a
Yeah.
quick one. So Emil, when I was with FDOT, all of our carryovers, we had a ledger for that. So we knew what we were carrying forward. We didn't need to budget for it in the coming year because the money was going to be carried forward. Maybe you want to put together a schedule of everything that you guys carry forward from year to year by category, so we have it plain and simple in front of us.
And we do. It's just that it's not included in the presentation or as a separate line item. We can identify,
I'm sure you can.
yeah.
I'm just trying to
yeah.
simplify things.
Thank
So
you.
if somebody's got a question, they go to that. That's your footnotes that come out of the annual report.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
we do.
Okay, any other council comment? Seeing none, any public comment? Seeing none, I do want to make one observation. This is budget.
Noel Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. This is going to be basically the exact same one that I had last time.
Turn the mic a little bit. Thank you.
Basically the same one as I had at the last workshop. On page 52, we have a communications coordinator that we're hiring. I did a little bit of looking at this. Now, this is going to be one showing just how good Russell was and is, that it's taking 3 people to replace his one person we had before as our assistant and town clerk and communication interference person. We now have a Deborah, and we have an assistant, and now we're going to hire a 3rd person. It's taking 3 people to do what one person did before he became someone that we think is still doing as much work as he did before, plus the additional work as our administrator, and still hasn't learned how to delegate completely. And it's a work in progress, I know that. I still do not see a need for a communications coordinator to handle all the trash that's on the internet that comes at us every day. Because I'm lucky because I don't have that. I don't see it. I still don't see it. And I've talked to people. I don't think there's enough work for that person to do. I think it should go to the assistant. And that should be the communication coordinator. But that's not for me to say, that's for you 5 to say. And I will continue to say that. I found out last time where Broadwing is, and that's wonderful. And I think we need a little bit of clarification within the budget itself. We were talking about one clarification right now. While we're hiring this communications coordinator, what if this communications coordinator takes a year to find someone and it goes into the next budget? Are we going to have this same thing next year where this amount rolls over? I don't think that should ever happen. I think anything that rolls over has to be in the budget, period, as a line item. And you can then say, if you want to, with a note, that it's a rollover from last year, but it should be a budgeted line item or a page in itself. I didn't hear anything from the council last time about expanding the print size of the small little prints that they have now for those that are going blind, and the glasses are getting thicker every year. And also stating that, can I have a couple more minutes? Stating that the amount not be on 2 different pages at the same time, so you think that instead of 14,000, it's 28,000. And also any person that is being transferred out of one department into another department, so that other department can hire another person into that department, I see that as an invisible empire building. We've got all these things that are happening that we were talking about tonight, where it goes into undefined fund balance, becomes this giant puddle of money. And you can use it any way you want, and really, really, we, you as a council, want it to be transparent. And I think that's the fight tonight, is we're not getting the transparency that you should have and the town people, citizens, should have. So please specify directly to our finance department. And also finding out, let's see. Oh yes, and Parks Department. I asked last year for a breakdown of the events and expenses for each event. How much for a total of I think it's $28,000 that's in parks for events. How much is going to each event? And what events are there that the town is sponsoring? And that isn't there, and it still is not there. Last year I got a sheet that said what it was, but it was only my sheet. It was not in the budget. And this year I thought it was supposed to be in the budget, and it's not. I'd like in the next budget that the council to tell finance that it have a special, maybe addendum, where the line item of whatever the event's money is set there and said that this event's 5,400, this one's 10,000, this one's whatever. And so we know what the events are and how much they're approximately budgeted. Now, if they have to come back for more money, that's one thing they'll come back to the council for. But if they decide not to have the events, then they have more money for other events or whatever. And I don't want to see that. I want to see that money, if they don't have the event, to disappear back into undefined fund balance. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Noel. Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comment closed. I'll try and address a few of those issues. I do remember, Newell, you brought up that item and wanting to see the detail on it. You know, there's always a mix, and I believe this is a very similar comment that I said a year ago. There's a balance in play, where if you go into too much detail, it becomes a mammoth book, and you can't see the forest for the trees. On the other hand, if you're so high up, 100,000 feet, you can't even tell there's a forest down there. And so you're looking for that balance where the budget makes sense, but you haven't gone into so much detail that it becomes muddled again. And I actually think the finance team has done a great job of finding that middle of the road. However, there are situations like you just brought up where individual residents have an interest in a particular area, and in those situations, to me, it makes sense, just like you did last year, like you did right now, is to say, hey, I want to see the detail on this. And they're more than willing to get that detail. But to be able to publish it, because you're asking for one thing in parks, but if we were to make that a policy change, that would be multiplied over a wide swath of accounts, and it would make the whole process, I think, a lot less transparent, a lot less clear. So I think they're in a pretty good place, and if somebody wants, and I would say this out into the world at large, and if there's something else that you are aware of that you want the detail in, that's why finance is here, and they've always been very good about just setting up, just make an appointment, come by, and they'll dig through the books with you. So I think that's available, but I think they're in a pretty good balance with that. As far as the head count that you spoke about, there are situations where, like any good, well-run organization, you have to look at it on a constant basis. How does the structure of the organization make most sense? And so it's not unusual for organizations to move positions around. And sometimes the people move with that position. Sometimes their skills are in a department and they don't move with that, and they stay where they are and do things. And so it does get a little muddled. I agree with you. But the key is that in this budget, which gives me peace of mind, is that I was able to, like you were able to, as you spoke about, not this meeting, but the meeting before, you identified the 3 new positions. And you brought them up, and we addressed those 3 positions because the new positions are called out. Now, there's other things shuffled around that have to do with the organization itself and the best way to run it. But, and I agree with you, it makes things a little muddled. But so long as those new positions are highlighted and we're aware that this is what's happening, so that we as a council and you as residents can see it and identify it and recognize it, and it's transparent, then I think we've done what we need to do. And the last thing is, and this is just something we're probably going to have to agree to disagree on, I actually think that this communication individual is one of the most important positions that we've got. There's like 3 or 4 top line things that I get the majority of my calls about. You know, potholes, speeding, why didn't you tell me about this? You know, I hear it all the time. And it's because we're not as active on social media. A lot of times, even though I'm not a great believer in Facebook, our Facebook page needs a lot of work. You know, it's not the go-to place right now. I hate to say it, but it's not the go-to place. There's other Facebook communities out there that people go to because they honestly, giving them their due, they have more information than they'll find on our website. And it's because we're working on other things. We need somebody that's going to focus on those kinds of things, that's going to build up, I know we're going to agree to disagree, but increase an X list, you know, so that when things happen, we can put it out on X and this whole crew of people get it. And it's another way to get the communication out there that we're totally missing today. And so I do think it's a very critical position. I'm excited to see it in there, and I think it's going to benefit our town tremendously. The last thing I'll say is, Newell, I appreciate that you look over the budget. I appreciate that you go in the detail that you go to, and I appreciate that you bring these things to the council. You do a great job. Thank you. Any other council comments on the budget? Seeing none, if you please call the roll.
Councilmember Albritton?
Yes?
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes.
Councilmember Kaczynski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hartman?
Yes.
Mayor Bright Cruz?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned.
So we are adjourned. The next meeting, our actual council meeting, will be starting at 7:30. So go out, have a fun time, and see you back in 40 minutes.